March of the Living is such a valuable learning experience for our students. To be able to walk the streets where their grandparents once walked, to visit the camps where their grandparents endured so much, to continue to Jerusalem, to pray at the Kotel, to see Masada and all that it represents. All of this is an experience of learning that is unachievable through books, DVDs, even through the best technology. To be there provides a depth of experience which our students will never forget.
We're so excited!
Now in the morning I sleep alone, sweep the streets I used to own. I used to roll the dice, feel the fear in my enemy's eyes.
3 suitcases missing.
Really? 3?
Just 3.
Now the old king is dead, along with the king. One minute I held the key, next the walls were closed on me, and I discovered that my castle stands.
You're going to see something here that, on the one hand, you've never seen in your lives, but on the other hand, you have seen. So I'll start with what's familiar. What's familiar is that you all come from very vibrant Jewish communities. You come from Melbourne, think of Caulfield, a bustling Jewish community. Some of you come, many of you from Sydney, you know Bondi. Some of you come from New Zealand, I don't know about Auckland, vibrant, bustling, but there's a Jewish community there. So whatever you think about your own community, multiply that, not numerically, not in numbers, but multiply that by hundreds in terms of what once existed here. Here in Krakow, this town was established in about the 14th century, the 1300s. So we're not used to Jewish life going back so far, and this became one of the most vibrant Jewish communities in the world.
A very significant name for this country. And so Jews were coming to Poland, to Krakow in 12th century, 13th century, and in Krakow we have first information about Jews.
streets and these shuls, as beautiful as they are, and they're far nicer, I think, than anything that we have in Australia. And knowing that the Jewish life here was far richer, far more vibrant than anything that we have in Australia, nonetheless, without people, without Jews, here, this place really is like a Hollywood stage set.
My father was in textile industry and worked in a textile factory. We were active in the Bund, even though we came from a traditional Jewish family, with a religious background. We regard ourselves as a secular Jews. We kept all the Yom Tovim. My mother went to shul on Yom Kippur, but not my father. I went to Cheder as a little boy, since my grandfather was a teacher of religion. I was pushed to go to the Cheder from the age of 3. My Zaide, the teacher, gave me 5 groschen because he wanted to praise me. My Bubba.
An ordinary pharmacy, situated on the very border of the ghetto. An ordinary pharmacy, owned by a Pole, Tadeusz Pankiewicz. It was in this ordinary pharmacy that extraordinary acts of bravery and compassion took place. Using the strategic position of the pharmacy, Pankiewicz risked his life to smuggle Jews out of the ghetto.
Had I been in that place, what would I have done? Would I, in the midst of an ocean of hatred, against a world of collapsing in flames, would I have been prepared to offer shelter to the sons of a people other than my own? Would I, myself, have been prepared?
The wanderings began. From daybreak until late at night, platforms, furniture, vans, farm wagons, and pushcarts were dragged through the city streets, carrying the possessions to the new habitations.
Farewell, my Krakow, so I wish you well. The wagon's waiting at my house. The wild enemy drives me out as one drives out a stray dog, without mercy, far away from you.
First of all, welcome to the Kepler Schneider Synagogue. It was one synagogue out of 20 from Oswiecim. And this synagogue was a very young synagogue before the outbreak of the Second World War.
This is what is known as a shtetl, and the majority of Jews lived not in large cities like Warsaw or Łódź or in Krakow, as we've just been in, but lived in what is known as a shtetl.
I think there's a bit of irony in a place like this, where on the one hand you see the absolute destruction. You look around the synagogue and there's seats that are empty and have been empty and no doubt will stay empty. But on the flip side, you see an enormous amount of life in the Jewish youth, and the fact that, albeit that the Jewish life here is dead, the Jewish life continues to survive and thrive in other parts of the world. On the one hand, it's bittersweet. We're very sad. On the other hand, we feel very triumphant. Despite as hard as the Nazis tried, they were unsuccessful. So I suppose on a day it's like this, in a place like this, on the one hand you're very sad, on the other hand you feel very proud that you're in a place like this and we're still here, and we, despite all their efforts, we're still here.
Tomorrow we're going to go to places like Belzec that are purpose-built death camps. Auschwitz is very different. It's a place that evolved, and initially it evolved and had many purposes. So the earliest people who were prisoners in here were who? They were Soviet prisoners of war. That is why most survivors you know who are in camps have a number tattooed on their arm. Why do they have a number tattooed on their arm? Because if you went to Belgium, if you went to Treblinka, there wasn't a system of tattooing because you went straight to your death.
With the March of the Living, it's the first time. And I'm glad I came. And my memories are floating back to the time when I actually was here in Bergen. And I'm always willing to give over to the younger generation, not my knowledge, but my experiences. It's a day of the darkest day in our Jewish history. Because, well, I hope to be around for many, many more years, but we have to look and prepare succession. And this is what we are actually doing. And this is why I'm so glad I came this time at the March of the Living.
מאיפה אתם באוסטרליה? גם מסידני? תבואו לבקר אותנו, תהיו בירושלים.
March of the Living has decided that Australia is marching first, okay? Which has never happened before. But before the march begins, they want...
Today we march so that the war never again experiences the atrocities that took place in this horrific place. We march so that never again will people remain silent when confronted with evil. We are marching together, Jews and non-Jews alike, from all over the world, to state to the international community that types of hate-filled messages being spoken in Geneva today will never be tolerated.
למטה למעלה, מרכבות סתומות הולכות ומתגלגלות. כל נעימות עולה ויורד, הולך ומשוטט בעולם. כל שופר נמשך בעומקי המדרגות, מסובב הגלגל סביב.
is a unique custom in the Jewish religion. We go out to the cemetery and find our loved one's tombstone, the Metzevot, and we do what is known as Kever Avot, Kever Oves. We take a small stone and we put it on the grave, on the Metzeva, and we say, we're here. We haven't forgotten you. We love you. In Auschwitz, here, there are no Metzevot. All those who perished here, my mother, my sister, my whole family, they have no Metzeva. But you, all of you standing here, are the little stones who are saying to them, we are here. We haven't forgotten you. We love you.
That there are things in Jewish history, in human history, that are too terrible to be believed, but they're not too terrible to have happened. Oswiecim, Majdanek, Dachau, Treblinka, these are beyond vocabulary. Words may ease the pain, but they may also dwarf the tragedy.
In times to come, when the survivors will no longer be here with us, who will be the ones to tell the world the story of the Shoah, if not us?
Po raz pierwszy spotykamy się, po raz kolejny spotykamy się w tym miejscu, aby zademonstrować, że Żydzi i kultura żydowska szatańskim planem hitlerowskich Niemiec skazana na zagładę przetrwała.
50 kilometers from here, there is a city named Wadowice. In that city used to live, was born the late Pope John Paul II. I met with him for the first time in Castel Gandolfo in Italy on September 1993. Just in the beginning of our talk of 40 minutes, he said to me, I remember your grandfather from Krakow, Rabino Frankiel Teomim, walking to the synagogue on Shabbat, surrounded with very many children. How many grandchildren did you have? The answer was 47. Only my mother's side. The Pope asked, and how many survived Holocaust? My answer was only 5. The Pope looked at the ceiling, and after a while he said, wherever I go, and there are over 100 countries I visited already as a Pope, I emphasize our commitment and obligation of all mankind to the continuity and the future of our senior brother, the Jewish people. שוכן במרומים, דיין אלמנות ואבי יתומים, אל נא תחסה ותתאפה.
I came here in a railway cattle truck. Looked on the outside, small two windows with barbed wire on each side, bare floor, a bucket in the corner, and we Jews from Łódź, Lodz, Litzmannstadt ghetto. How long it took to come here, I do not know. How many people in that railway compartment, I do not know, but it was pretty tight to lie on the floor. We came here, it was dark and quiet. As the day was coming on, we heard some voices. Suddenly, the door opened. Sheer hell broke loose. Why, we do not know until this day. One of us said that we born in July of one year, the other one said April of the other year. Only after the war, did we and the world find out that Dr. Joseph Mengele, chief doctor and select of Auschwitz-Birkenau, was on the lookout for twins. And we haven't got the slightest doubt. Would we have said the same date of birth, we would have been grabbed by the neck, kicked in away, and taken for only God knows what.
My late maternal grandmother, Taube Blau, was interned in Auschwitz between August 1944 and December 1944. She had been born in Wielun, Poland, a town 80 kilometers south of Lodz. Wielun was a very small town, but was one of the very first to be hit by the Nazi invasion on September 1, 1939. My mother was also denied the opportunity to meet most of her maternal and paternal families. However, we both know that my grandmother would be so proud of my family and the fact that I, as a third generation of Holocaust survivors, am ensuring that her suffering was not for nothing
until it was
and
cut
be
short
preserved.
at the young age of 12 when the war broke out. The Germans came into Radom within 7 days after it was bombed. My Bubba witnessed horrible bloodshed through beatings and shootings every day. These terrible memories are permanently embedded in her mind. My Bubba's grandmother and grandfather were dragged outside their house by Nazis and were savagely beaten to death. During this terrible time of war, the ghetto was built around the area where my Bubba was living.
Whom I called Omi, died at the age of 102. She was born in 1905 as Susanna Strauss and lived through one of mankind's toughest centuries that included 2 world wars, which were very much a part of her life. She met and later married Robert Lobel and had a daughter, Anna Marie.
Susie Lobel, her husband Dr. Robert Lobel, and their daughter, Anne-Marie Lobel, Josh's grandmother, lived in Vienna in a flat that looked out over the Rigsens in the center of the city.
I am here at last to represent her in honor of her family who perished here under such terrible conditions.
Mach so die ekelach, hat kommen fekelach.
Because you can feel now how suddenly it changed and become so cold. You can imagine when I was brought to this place with my mother at the end of August 1944 from the Lodz ghetto. On arrival here in this place on this ramp, those heavy doors were flung open. The scream of the SS, everybody out. Men one side, women and children the other side. In those few precious moments, but I was still together with my mother. My mother was able to whisper in my ear, she said, Abraham, you should do everything humanly possible to survive. And when you will survive, wherever you will be, you should tell people what actually happened to us, what I did to us, because by knowing, people will be able to prevent such atrocities. Such genocide will never happen again to nobody. Only a short while after this, I lost my last member what was under Nazi occupation in the gas chambers not far from here.
As the eldest of 8 children, born to parents who struggled to support the large growing family, Nana went to live in the nearby town with her wealthy aunt and uncle who were childless. My grandmother describes the love and warmth that was showered on her by all her parents. In April 1944, their lives changed forever. Nana, aged 17, and the Jews of Neubada in Hungary were forcibly driven out of their homes with meager possessions to Sima Dusta ghetto. After 4 weeks, they were herded into cattle trains to Auschwitz, and on arrival, Nana was separated from her entire family by Dr. Mengele and his selection process.
I stand here today, the grandson of a Holocaust survivor. My granny, Stephanie Heller, and her sister, Annetta Abel, were 2 of a group of prisoners who became known as Mengele twins. Of their experience, Stephanie and Annetta write, "The message from us survivors is, do not hate others because of their race or religion. Do not fight others. Give them a helping hand. Work together for lasting peace and better conditions worldwide. The world should learn from the past and apply it to the present, to lead their children in the direction of humanity and justice. Racism and hate should never again rise."
I, Darren Zuckerman, stand here as a representative today in respect and for the memory and the sufferance of my beloved grandparents and all of their families whose lives were totally decimated during the Second World War by the Germans on Polish soil. I also stand here as living proof that the Germans' plan of total annihilation failed, and to show the local population here that despite all that was done to us, a small remnant has survived and prevailed to continue the thread of Jewish life. In particular, my grandfather, Mendel Zuckerman, with tattoo number B2747, who survived Auschwitz and Blagin concentration camps and the Long March, my dear grandmother Miriam Fatal, who was liberated from Bergen-Belsen, and my maternal grandfather Janek Shafrin, who survived by hiding in the forests.
In the centre of Poland, where the Jews were transported away on October 27, 1942. On that day, most of the women and children, including my great-grandmother Hinda, aunties whom I never knew, were taken to Treblinka, where they died in the gas chambers. My Zeta, Yossel, was sent to a slave labour camp and from there to Auschwitz in June 1944. At the Seder table this year, he told us again what he remembered about that day. He arrived in the afternoon on the train platform we have just seen at Birkenau. He saw some young children being marched past him and was told that they were...
זה הזמן אני יודע וכל כך מתגעגע לך אני נשבע שזה נכון ואמיתי זה הזמן אני יודע וכל כך מתגעגע לך אני נשבע
Very intense, lots of emotions.
And you never imagine how big it is also.
That was
massive.
the biggest surprise, just how far it all stretches, just everywhere. Like you look around and it's never ending, all around you.
Run out, I'll be giving you my best.
der Bäume, alle Vögel von dem Baum sehnen sich zerfleugen. Drei kein Mittag, drei kein Mai, und erreicht kein Dorf, und dem Baum gelust allein, heftiger fahren Sturm. Sag ich zu der Mammen Herr, sollst mir noch nicht sterben, weil ich Mama eins und zwei bald auf Vögel waren. Ich war sitzen auf den Bäumen und weil ihn verwiegen über den Winter mit der Trist, mit der schönen Liegen. Yam tadi 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 tam. Yam tadi 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 tam.
But these places were different to Auschwitz because these places had no survivors. Do you know how many people came through the gates here and survived? There's a dispute about it. How many do you think? Some say 5, 3, some say 2. The books generally say 2. 2! Can you imagine that? 2. And this place is really, more than any other place, a Jewish graveyard. In the space of 9 months, from March 1942 until about November, December 42, the entire southeastern or Ukrainian area of Poland, the Jewish population was wiped out. This was the heart of the final solution.
כאן, במשלוח הזה, אני חווה, עם הבל בני. אם תראו את בני הגדול, כן, בן אדם, תגידו לו שאני. כאן במשלוח הזה, אני חווה, עם הבל בני. אם תראו את בני הגדול, כן, בן אדם, תגידו לו שאני.
לכל איש יש שם שנתן לו אלוהים ונתנו לו אביו ואימו. לכל איש יש שם שנתנו לו קומתו ואופן חיוכו ונתן לו האריג. לכל איש יש שם שנתנו לו ההרים ונתנו לו כתליו. לכל איש יש שם שנתנו לו המזלות ונתנו לו שכנה. לכל איש יש שם.
There are remnants of those people. They're probably, or they happen to visit their cousin, or, you know, somewhere elsewhere and finish up in Russia. He comes from here and he wasn't here because everybody else was here. You can't comprehend it all. You can't think that it really happened. It's so bestiality, so murderous invention.
About noon, the train arrived in Meltzer. It was a very small station situated in a very small town. At the station, the train moved from the main line and onto a siding, about 1 kilometre long, which led straight into the gate of the death camp.
Each convoy was composed of 50 cattle trucks, each truck containing 100 people. If a transport happened to come during the night, the victims were kept in locked cars until 6 in the morning. The average death toll was 10,000 people a day.
It is a bright day, but there is no sun around me and no warmth coming from me. I miss my mummy, daddy, and my brother. I want to go where they are. She sneaked away and reported herself to the local Nazis, who put her on the next train to the gas chambers at Belzec.
Barely a handful of people survived Belzec. It was a place designed purely for killing Jews. But fortunate is a relative term. Whilst my grandmother and her family did not come here, they endured other horrors throughout the war. They were interred in Transnistria, in Ukraine, the border of which lies only a few miles from where we stand now. My grandmother was born in a hard-working family in Chernowitz, Romania, the younger of 2 daughters. Her father and mother owned a store that sold materials and haberdashery. But I have learnt many things from the little she has told me, not just about what happened, but about how lucky we are to live at a time and in a place where the horrors of the Holocaust are things we read about and learn about, but fortunately not things we have to endure.
Our grandmother was a small child when her father decided it was time to get out of Germany. He begged his parents to join him, as he was the only child. But unfortunately, his parents were very patriotic Germans who never believed they would be harmed by their own people simply because they were Jews. They refused to leave. Sadly, they were soon rounded up by the Germans and sent to Theresienstadt, where my Nana's grandfather was pushed down the stairs and killed. Her grandmother survived the camp and was finally liberated by the Allies at the end of the war. She was very lucky.
Although we will not be seeing Theresienstadt, being a part of March of the Living and being at the sites where so many people perished simply because they were Jewish has made our family history all the more real for us and brought us closer to those we lost. It has made us realize how incredibly precious life is and how man's inhumanity to man is something we should all aim to rid of this world as soon as possible. Our grandpa was one of the lucky ones who left Europe before the war. All the people from the town of Mainz in Germany, where he came from, were sent to Belzec. So we all wanted to speak here not only to honor the memory of our grandmother's family, but also the people of Mainz.
I wake frequently during the night. Every time I wake, the first thing I see is my mother's face. I don't know why. My papa, Mietek Silberg, was born in Voynich, Poland in 1924. However, he moved to Weliczka, 12 kilometers from Krakow, when he was 10. He was the eldest of 4 children and the sole survivor of his family. He has written a book of his Holocaust experiences, from which I will be quoting throughout this testimony.
Each of us has a name. Each person who has walked these streets has a name.
Each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile, and given by what we wear.
Mother, Anna Hannah Levin. Sister, Tuzia Devora. Auntie, Golda Rock, Klapop. Her 2 children, Sarah Rock, 12 years old, Mary
Steel, a history of darkness, shadows stretched across the scarred land. Caustic, scathing, burning. A wilting rose dying and doubled over, withering and waning as grey as the sky. Then, a beam of light. The clouds slide away, bringing with them life. The flower straightens up. It reaches. It calls. It beckons. And so does it rain.
How do you describe it? What alphabet do you employ? What words? What language? What silence? What scream?
Then came the Yellow Star, the Jewish Star of David. In August 1942, after months of despair, hunger, and constant humiliation, Sala was deported with 5,000 other Jewish victims to the gas chambers of Belzec. Her daughter, Sabina van der Linden, was 11 years old when she separated from her mother. She was hidden first by a Polish family and then in a forest. She was the only member of her family to survive the Holocaust.
Warsaw, Shmei Rabbah, Auschwitz, Ba'alam Dvarach Putei, Dachau, Yamlich Malchutei, Buchenwald, B'chayechon, U'v'yomechon, Babiyal, B'chayei K'chol Beit Yisrael, Birkenau.
matter of special pride to the Nazis to destroy the Talmudic Academy, which at the time was known as the greatest in Poland. The Nazis threw out the building the large Talmudic library and brought it to the marketplace. There, a fire was kindled under the books. The flames lasted 20 hours. All are phantoms, shadows, haunting a world that is no longer in existence. Nobody speaks in Lublin. Nobody exchanges greetings. They have even ceased to weep.
Now looking here, what would have been through the lens of Emmanuel's camera and Cian's.
As traumatic as it is, visiting the camps is essential. And the students visit the camps without experiencing the camps in the way that their grandparents and others experienced them. That is obvious. Nevertheless, yes, it's traumatic. But with the support of the adults on the trip, the madrichim, and especially their own friends, and the opportunity each night to speak and support each other, to reflect on the day's experience, it provides them with the opportunity to handle and deal with the trauma of visiting these sites very, very effectively.
כשהלב בוכה, רק אלוהים שומע. הכאב עולה מתוך הנשמה. אדם נופל לפני שהוא שוקע. בתפילה קטנה חותכת הדממה. שמע ישראל אלוהי, אתה כל יכול. נתת לי את חיי, נתת לי הכל. בעיניי דמעה, הלב בוכה בשקט. וכשהלב שותק, הנשמה זועקת. שמע ישראל עכשיו אני לבד. חזק אותי אלוהי, עושה שלא אבחר. הכאב גדול ואין לאן לברוח.
Field covered 6 hectares, and then around each field was a double line of barbed wire fence, high voltage, then watchtowers, and 24 hours a day the SS patrolled. And on my bus, I don't know, it was on my bus, I was saying, you know, until you come here, you're sensible, why can't someone escape? You know, perhaps they'd make a run for it. And until you're physically here and keep walking, you realise why you couldn't escape here. Electrified wire, not just one, but then another level. And you'd have the watchtower and up and down all the time. And then, so let's say you got to the next field, but again it would be the same thing, the double-wired electric fence.
A million pairs of shoes lie and think. A million pairs of shoes, surviving shoes. Clambering, stirring, groping towards the sky. A million Jews carried their wounds in these shoes. A million women carried their love in these shoes. A million children carried their hopes in these shoes. A million people walked to their fate in these shoes.
And because we are only made of fabric and leather, and not of blood and flesh, each one of us avoided the hellfire.
חזק אותי אלוהי, עשה שלא אבחר. הכאב גדול ואין לאן לברוח. עשה שיגמר, כי לא נותר בי כוח.
I always wanted to be near to war. You know why? Because I had protection and we had to spread their legs and people fitted in. And if the one who was in front, you can imagine when you are actually asleep in a row of people, somebody turns in the night, during the night, so 2 hours what you had, it wasn't comfortable, and suddenly I wakes up and he don't know where he is. So he turns. When he turns, he wakes everybody up. And what happened? The couple come with a piece of lump of food and smashed the head. I lost one of my sport instructors. His misfortune was that he was in the first one in front.
So that someone will bear witness to their children and grandchildren, and maybe if just one person is saved because somebody has known what had happened, that's already worth it. Because you save one person and you just save a nation.
Today, I would like to speak to you about my grandmother, Rachel Ella Prince, or Nana as I call her. Today, Ella lives in Melbourne together with David Prince, her husband, just a few steps away from my house. To begin, I feel that I should briefly describe my grandmother's family before the Shoah. Ella was born in Warsaw, Poland in 1927. Her parents were Rosa and Isaac.
Of Nazi-occupied Europe reached Denmark. Israel Gluck's own family were murdered by the Nazis, except for his brother, who was sent to England in a children's transport. Israel Gluck and another group of young Jews tried to escape capture by traveling under the carriage of a train to Turkey and then continuing on to Palestine.
I wanted to relive a scene in my life when I was 13. And I went to my grandfather's house. I was alone with him and I asked him, "How did you feel during the war?" Very general question. And he replied, "Not once did I cry." So today, I cry for him in his first concentration camp.
In the dark, we watch as they trudge slowly by. We begin to tremble, shadow breath, our lips go dry.
Palms start to perspire as they take their seats. They find their friends, they meet and greet.
SS men drove them into the ditches with rifle butts, forcing them to lie flat. Other SS men standing above them.
In the sleepless nights, I count the names of Jewish children. Moishle, where is your hand? Where is that smile in your eye? Rivkele, where are your plates? Where is your little foot, Vegele? All that is left of you is ash. Ash and just the sounds of your names.
But I'm not the only one. I hope someday you join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possession,
large family to keep and also help a lot of extended family that had very little. So it was necessary. Some of the extended family that was my grandmother on the other hand, you know, tall, coiffured, chestnut, red hair. Gally takes after her. And she ruled the family and the business was an iron fist. Without her, they probably would have gone under.
There was a higher fence at that. Behind that fence was, during the summer month, a velodrome. But during the winter, they poured the water over it, and it was a skating rink. There was not that many skating rinks, but it was the closest. So we sat in the windows and watched them skating. We are standing on holy ground. A long time ago, this land was consecrated and blessed according to Jewish law and tradition. On this land stood this synagogue. The Germans burned that synagogue to the ground with all the other synagogues of Lodz. Here and now, I would like to pass on the memories, my childhood memories of this synagogue to my daughter, Frances, her son, my grandson, Judith's grandson, Noam, Nathan, Cole, forever. And that's for you, one and all, be a witness to my testimony.
So this is a huge Jewish community. It's a community that had something like 80 shuls. And we've been standing on a ground with David where he went to shul, one of 80, and that one empty lot where a shul stood gives us a notion of what has been lost here. Multiply that by 80 with shuls. There was something like 30 primary Jewish day schools. Cities like this were the center of Jewish life. And what is amazing is that that entire world has vanished.
$10,000 Jews were deported then. 5,000 in the direction of Krakow, where we were on, and 5,000 in the direction of Lublin. There are only 2 survivors from those 10,000 people. It's myself from the 48th Gerska Street, and a friend of mine, but did live 46, she and her sister did survive.
Like a huge, well-oiled machine advancing inexorably on Warsaw. On the 3rd day, I saw German officers catching Jewish men and burning or cutting off their beards. They were laughing delightedly and being photographed in the process of these activities.
The ghetto children have never seen a carousel and seldom heard music. They listen and peer at a curious alien world where children live in a sort of never-never land. A merry-go-round, almost within reach. Only the barbed wire keeps them away. Children are children on either side of the barbed wire. and yet they are not
a
the
buzzing
same.
bee, who's never been allowed to play outside, to laugh and sing out. Who all day long, locked up in a sombre room, dreamt of a crumb of bread and starved to death, and at night swallowed the pain and cried itself to sleep, to dream of animals, flowers, a tree, a trade.
Chaim Krapart was born in Krakiewicz, just outside the town of Bielun, south of Lodz. He was born on the second Seder night in 1922, with the English date being the 2nd of April, a birthday that I was privileged to share with my special Seder. His family owned a bakery. By 1936, it was impossible for them to continue dealing in grain due to anti-Semitism, and the family moved to Pabianitz, a place very close to where we're standing.
He got caught again, so we had to come back on another carriage, and they did it again, and then it happened again. He got caught, and he came back on the carriage, and he did it again, and he broke out with everybody and escaped. So there are stories like that.
איך להרגיע, איך להרגיע את האיבה, אם רק נדע, אם נדע להשקיע את זמנו.
Yeah, it's been a meaningful experience. I've learned a lot from it, and I think it's changed me as a person for the better.
Obviously there's aspects of it that's quite nerve-wracking and scary and shocking, sometimes even numbing to your emotions, but at the end of the day, when you reflect on it, you find out that everything you're doing is worth it. You wake up every morning and you know that what you're doing is for like an amazing cause, and you wake up and you say to yourself, I'm excited for a day because I know it's got a purpose.
I think it's essential to come here and view it at some point in your life. And I think coming here with friends, you know, not everybody we know, but you're meeting everyone, and there's just such a comfortability between the whole group now. We've only been on this for 5 days. But to come and see it's essential in your lifetime. So the fact that we're all doing it as a group is amazing.
The 3 survivors are amazing. Just to hear their stories, especially like we visit their houses and stuff, to see it and to know it from to hear it from a first-hand experience it's definitely worthwhile. It's quite essential to completely understanding the story. To see their emotions and to hear their emotions in the way they speak, it really helps to properly understand and to put everything into perspective.
The Anzac tradition, the ideals of courage, endurance and mateship, was established on the 25th of April 1915, when Australian and New Zealand armies landed in Gallipoli. These men created a legend, adding the word Anzac to our vocabularies, and creating the notion of the Anzac spirit.
Did you think that would forget you, mate, with the slow march of the years? That, as time passed, would wipe the slate of your sorrow and your tears.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
Country far from home. We also remember the Polish men and women who have sacrificed all for their country, the soldiers and citizens of allied nations.
During the war, this psychiatric hospital also housed many Jews who were hiding there before they could, hoping that they could find more permanent hiding places and they could get hold of Aryan papers.
יש לנו זמן מתחת השמיים, בינתיים אנו עוד כאן, את ואני, את ואני.
I had an absolutely amazing time. I can't get over what good kids they are, how emotional they are, but sensible at the same time, and how well they've behaved and what great representative for Australian children they've been. I think it's absolutely invaluable, and it's something that will stay with them, that they'll pass on to their children, hopefully, and their grandchildren. And I think it'll make their thoughts a lot broader, and it'll make them richer people for it.
שניים כמו זוג עיניים, יש לנו זמן מתחת השמיים, בינתיים אנו עוד כאן, שנינו אחד, שנינו אחד, שנינו אחד, אחד שלם ועגול, שלם וגדול. בואי ניתן, בואי ניתן, בואי ניתן, אני אתן לך לתת, לתת לי לתת לך, באנו לך.
And I know that you bring the right spirit into the world to help peace.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This way, it says Oxford.
I don't understand. Vicky?
Good looking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
אני אוהב ואוהב ואוהב, כן כן, נה 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 נה.
Yanis Korczak believed that children should always be listened to and respected. Through his work, he was held in high esteem by both Jews and Poles alike.
Slowly they go down the steps, line up in rows, in perfect order and discipline, as usual. Their little eyes turn towards the doctor. They are strangely calm. Their doctor is going with them. So what is there to be afraid of? They are not alone.
See, the gates are open wide. Don't cry, just sing, it's a holiday. And we're going outside. And the street unrolled like a carpet. As the barefoot children walked past, singing, we're going, and not alone.
Over the wall, through the holes and past the guard, through the wires, ruins and fences. Plucky, hungry and determined, I sneak through, dart like a cat. At noon, at night, at dawn, in snowstorms, cold or heat. 100 times I risk my life and put my head on the line.
For 7 weeks I've lived in here, penned up inside the ghetto. But I have found what I love here. The dandelions call to me, and the white chestnut branches in the court. Only I never saw another butterfly. That butterfly was the last one.
והשקט חזר, רואים לפי
had come. The train moved off amidst constant shrieks, cries, and rifle shots. We were leaving Warsaw. We were leaving Warsaw.
Special place. It's a personal place, and it's an empowering place. Why is it personal? Why is it personal for us to be here? Because for me, and you guys, some of you guys who would have been members of the youth movements, if we were here 70 years ago in this place, this symbolises some of the questions. This was a question posed to
My comrades in the Warsaw Ghetto perished with their weapons in their hand in their last heroic battle. It was not my death dated, but I belong to them and in their mass grave.
כל הטוב עודנו לפנייך, שימי ראש על כתפי, תני לי ידך בידי.
He was actually born as Adam Kaminsky, but changed much later in the 1960s to Adams because he wanted his name to be anglicized. He lived in a big house set in nice gardens surrounded by fruit trees.
Early one morning, he was getting ready to go to work and was about to leave the ghetto where he was living with the rest of his family, and there was a lot of shouting that the Germans had surrounded the ghetto, and he was lucky enough to escape over a wall with his papers and nothing else.
It began in 1988. Many Holocaust survivors have embarked on this difficult journey to Poland with one goal in mind, and that's to share their story with the next generation, so that the events and lessons of the Holocaust will never ever be forgotten. To the survivors, you are the last link to a world that is no more. It's not easy, physically or psychologically, to make this journey and to entrust your story to the hearts and minds of the next generation. We want to express our profound gratitude for your willingness to open your heart, to share the painful memories in order to build a better world. Your testimonies have left an indelible imprint on us. We will never forget your words and your indomitable spirit.
Never say that there is only death for you, though leaden skies may be concealing days of blue. Because the hour that we have hungered for is near. Beneath our tread, the earth shall tremble. We are here.
Good morning again, everyone. All of the Australians and New Zealanders and Israelis, and maybe there are other nationalities here, I don't know. Africans. And pigeons and Russians and Americans and I don't know what else. Good morning. We are today, before the rabbi's blessing, the Shechianu, I want to say a few words about where we are. Where are we? And where we are is the beach, the same beach that every new immigrant that came to Israel 100 years ago, 120, 140 years ago, they landed right here and they got off the ship and they came down and kissed the ground here.
Cut.
את תקוות יום הפרך וליל כבש.
עייפים עד בלי קץ, נזירים ממרגוע, ולטפין תללי נעורים עבריים. דום השניים הגשו, ועמדו לבלי נוע, והשאר יסופר בתולדות ישראל.
For me, after everything we've seen, after everything we've been through, all the camps, all the horrific things we've been through, it all paints a picture and puts all the information together with the scenes that we've seen.
It's a short summary, I mean, it's 3 hours in Yad Vashem, but it just puts the whole Poland trip together, and then now we move on to see and explore Israel and, you know, experience Israel.
You see the Kidron River right here, separating between Jerusalem and Mount of Olives. Okay? All of that you can see in this picture. Now, if you want, let's turn around and see exactly what we're talking about. The gold dome of the rock, that is where the temple was.
I met a strange lady, she made me nervous. She took me
תראה את נתייך, היא רוקדת טרנס. אני חושב אני צריך פה אמבולנס. נראה לי שעכשיו זה סופי, הלילה אף אחד כבר לא תחזור איתי.
It's amazing. It's the best experience of my life. Fantastic. This place is awesome.
Oh, it's so cool. It's absolutely amazing. Loving it. Come join me. What do you think of the hotel? I think it's like the awesomest experience ever. There's a lot of brick.
It's really special to see, like, from such affliction we've come to such joy and unification.
Auschwitz to Birkenau. Today we march to the Kotel. But I would like to tell all of you, the real heroes of the March of the Living are the survivors.
להישמע בריח, אני מתקלב עד עכשיו להיות עשרות אלף עוד לא ראית מה נמצא או מה חסר היום לא מתחלף לא ברקות ואתה עדיין שם הילדים קופצים, משתוללים רוקדים לא רואים שחור כי הם בתוכו כדי לראות מהר צריך רוצה להתחיל את הגדול אז לעצום עיניים ונראה את כל הטוב הילדים קופצים, משתוללים רוקדים הילדים קופצים, משתוללים רוקדים הילדים קופצים, משתוללים רוקדים והרים את הידיים ורול על השמיים הילדים קופצים, משתוללים רוקדים הילדים
The first thing, which is obvious, is the Shoah, I think, demands of us that Jewish people never be defenseless again. The Jewish people have to be strong, the Jewish people have to know how to defend themselves, the Jewish people have to know how to deal with adversity. I mean, to put it mildly, we're sick and tired of being victims, and Jewish people want to be able to take their own destiny into their own hands. And that's what Zionism is all about, yes? And Zionism is the Jewish national movement for independence and freedom. And that's why we have the State of Israel.
As you can see, it's got easy access for the bathroom. It's fantastic, really prized outfit.
לבן מדבר על אהבה, מספר איך בערים רג'ה משלים שירים, גיל זורק איזו בדיחה, אודי מנגן בבקלמה, אבישי נושף בשיר, ואמיר אותי מאיר. וילד מקשיבה ברגות ובשלווה, לצלילי המנגינה שעולה לה ועולה, גיל זורק איזו בדיחה, אודי מנגן בבקלמה, אבישי נושף בשיר, ואמיר אותי מאיר. הג'מה בהילולה, יא סלאם איזו שמחה, מוש מביא את הברכה לסלאם אינשאללה, גיל זורק איזו בדיחה, אודי מנגן בבקלמה, אבישי נושק בשיר, ואמיר אותי מאיר.
Gives you like the most amazing feeling, and you feel so proud to be Jewish. And if I didn't come to Israel after Poland, I don't know how I'd cope with it, but like, yeah, of course you cope with it, but Israel is just like the most unbelievable part.
Quite a difficult experience, but I think such an interesting and important one. Important in that it really furthered all our, Jewish education and just our knowledge of the past and the atrocities that occurred during the Second World War. And I think that's it's really important to acknowledge the past in order for us to move forward and build a better future.
It's uplifting. It's invigorating. It makes you feel very proud, especially being here, Yom HaTzmaut, Yom HaZikaron. I just felt so proud to be Jewish, to be in Israel, to have just been on this incredible once-in-a-lifetime experience. Like, I felt proud of myself for what I'd been through during the week, for everything we'd seen, everything we'd commemorated. And then coming here, it's like you see that there's a purpose behind it all. You kind of remember why you're here, like what the purpose of our trip was, everything we've remembered. But now we're here to remember that we are still alive, we're all still standing as a group here in Israel, and it's a really empowering feeling. It just makes you feel pretty amazing.
I think that for the rest of my life I'll really remember March Living not only as a great time with friends, not only as a memorable Holocaust educational experience, but as a trip where I was able to see where my true roots are in Europe, where my grandparents are from, where their parents are from, and where their parents are from, and really where the heart and soul of my family was born.
And then coming to Israel, it just makes the whole thing come together, just exploring the connection between the Shoah and the creation of the State of Israel. So it's just been an amazing experience for me.
Long live the king. One minute I held the the doors to let me in. Shattered windows and the sound of drums. People couldn't believe what I